What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by BetMGM. This is the Week 13 college football betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, is my BBOC co-host, Colin Wilson. Colin, it's good to be back. I was put on concussion protocol because I was so sick that I was told to take the day off. It was my first pod I've ever missed, and which I was appreciative because we have been in a cram session for 2 days. We're gonna have, and also our NFL Action Network podcast. Well, I'll be doing that after this. So the last 2 days have been pretty wild. I'm sure you've been in full cram session as well. It's the last regular season weekend. Well, I guess not including Army Navy. And it's a good one. I mean, look, it's kind of bittersweet that it's the last one, but this is one of my favorites. It's motivational weekend into bowl season, college football playoff. There's so much good football to be played. You excited for this weekend?
I'm excited for so many things. First off, we did all right on Saturday. I was able to carry us. We got the green lights going on in the back. We had a massive day. Hopefully we can roll it in here. This weekend, I'm excited for two things. One, kind of step away from the numbers a little bit and play more towards situational spots. You got teams trying to get into a bowl, teams that can't, teams that don't care that they're already placed. Plus, personally, this is it. The Razorbacks have one more game. Put this team to bed, live with the fact that we're living with Sam Pittman, and move on. Enough of this damn drama. I am so ready to put this Razorback football season behind me, move on to something more exciting like Muss losing to UNC Greensboro, but I'm ready for college football regular season to come to an end. Big slate. I'm excited.
Yeah, for what it's worth, we'll get into a lot of the motive. I play a ton of situational spots and angles here. For what it's worth, teams with 5 wins, I think there's 24 of them vying for bowl eligibility. They've hit it about when they're playing teams that don't have 5 wins. So when it's not a matchup of 2 5-win teams, they've hit it about a 53% clip historically this week. But keep in mind, that's against the close. A lot of times these teams get bet. So, if you're able to get in earlier, that percentage is even better. And I wouldn't advise blindly betting them. There's nuance to each of the matchups. So it's definitely just a factor to consider. And we'll touch on some of those angles today. But first, I also just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. We're thankful for each and every one of you for listening and supporting the podcast. Particular shout out to our voicemail callers, 959-BAD-BEAT. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe and like. But we're thankful for all of you. It's always a great week, I should say, of action while spending time with family, eating good. You have any plans?
Yeah, I'm going off to mom's here. It's a short drive back in Arkansas. Got all my family around me. Short drive. Actually going to enjoy not having to have a 2-3 hour car ride from the state of Oklahoma to Arkansas and enjoy some egg bowl and see the family and take it easy before bowl season absolutely dominates our lives for about 4 weeks.
Yeah, I'll have my normal Thanksgiving routine. My wife, who cooked a storm, cooked for like 20 people in a Friendsgiving on Sunday, is going to do it all over again Wednesday night. She was cooking for like 24 hours. She's going to do it all again. Her parents host Thanksgiving. My in-laws live really close by, so I'll make an appearance there, say hi, and then I'm back to my house, do some more work.
See, my whole family's Packer fans, and it's dictated by whether they win that game against the Lions or not, which means it might be an unhappy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, especially since that game is at noon. But my wife will make me an extra duck, and I will sit on the couch, watch the egg bowl, and I will have a duck carcass and just eat it like a caveman on the couch. And it's one of my favorite activities of the year. But let's get right into it. Well, before we get to the marquee matchups, which features the game between Ohio State and Michigan, let's do a little look ahead or look away. This is where we look at the schedule, last week's schedule, the upcoming schedule, to see if there are any angles to consider for certain teams in regards to motivation, whether they sit starters. So let's start in Conference USA with we already know the matchup. So it's going to be Liberty versus New Mexico State. Liberty will first head to UTEP. They are 17-point favorites. This game, it doesn't really mean anything, but Liberty is undefeated. So they do have the motivation to stay undefeated on the year. I don't have any good feel there. I do have a strong feeling on the other game. Jacksonville State will travel to New Mexico State. Shocker, love Jacksonville State here. I got to give a ton of credit to New Mexico State. They pantsed us last weekend. A couple things that I got wrong there. I thought that they were going to sit starters. New Mexico State clearly didn't, and clearly came out with a purpose. They didn't just win that game. They dominated Auburn. And then
Army
some
style.
of the things, some of the things that I've heard from people close to the Auburn program is like they were just completely looking ahead to Alabama. They didn't even prepare for the game.
Hugh Freeze spent a whole week recruiting.
Yeah, and it looked like it. I mean, Auburn looked like they didn't know. They never saw the New Mexico State offense on film in their life. So there's a couple angles here. New Mexico State, from Jerry Kill's presser, it seemed like he could sit Pavia this week. So I'm not banking on that, but they could sit starters. This is also a massive letdown spot. You just won at Auburn. You have a short week coming up where you have to go across country to face Liberty in the Conference USA Championship. But this is more about Jacksonville State. So you have a letdown for New Mexico State. They might sit starters. Jacksonville State, both these teams have been covering monsters. They're one of 6 teams in the country that only have 2 non-covers. But Jacksonville State, this is their Super Bowl. They believe that this game should be for a berth in the conference championship, but their waiver was denied. If there wasn't this archaic NCAA rule, both of these teams have the same record in conference. The winner of this game would go play Liberty in the conference championship. So Jacksonville State, they're not even guaranteed of a bowl. This could be their final game of the season. They're going to be jacked up to play this game. New Mexico State, as I mentioned, might sit starters. Big letdown after that Auburn game. That Jacksonville State defense, it's so underrated. I mean, some of the metrics that they have, even though they're undersized in the defensive line, like top 10 in line yards, their defense, I think, is the best unit on the field here. But this is just one of the best situational angles of the weekend. New Mexico State off that big win. Game doesn't mean anything to them. Short week, traveling across country for the Conference USA Championship, might sit starters. Give me the Gamecocks here. They got hit. I was waiting to see if a 3 popped. That was not coming, and they got demolished in the market today. I like anything under a field goal here. No real feel on Liberty and our Minor Nation boys. Do you have anything to add on either one of these Conference USA matchups?
Yeah, Jacksonville State is definitely the play. I think we have to give a boundary on all these numbers, because if people are listening on Friday, it's, I mean, if Diego gets announced out for this game, it's going to give it another pump of money here. But I agree with you on Jacksonville State. Everything you said. I don't think there's a better situational spot on the board than Jacksonville State playing in their Super Bowl. They believe they are the true champions of Conference USA, and they want to prove it here in this game. I think what you're looking at, if you haven't watched either of these 2 teams play, you're looking at 2 teams that are both heavy on the ground, but 2 completely different paces of play. Rich Rod wants to go as fast as he can. It's a completely different story with Jerry Kill. I don't see a ton of explosives in the head-to-head matchups about what these 2 teams can do on the ground, but New Mexico State has severe success rate issues against inside zone. They give up too many first downs. They don't have enough negative plays. They do give up explosives to counter too, which is something that Jacksonville State runs a ton. So as far as the ground situation, which both these teams run all the time, Jacksonville State is the one that's better prepared with the offense against the defense they're going up against. I love Jacksonville State. I agree with you. I'd stop buying at 2.5. Maybe I'd throw a little bit of money on 3.
Yeah, just to look. I mean, both these teams have had really easy schedules. They're in Conference USA. Jacksonville State has a slightly tougher schedule. And, just to compare these defenses, Jacksonville State 8th in success rate, 3rd in defensive line yards, 13th in yards per play allowed. New Mexico State, 81st, 82nd, and 73rd in those categories. And you mentioned it. Jacksonville State, one of the heaviest rush teams in the country. New Mexico State, 97th in rush success rate allowed. I think Jacksonville State will have no trouble moving the ball here. And yeah,
Let me
like I
look back
mentioned,
on UTEP. Can I look back on UTEP and Liberty real quick? Yeah, I
yep.
mean, for Liberty, who's also playing the Conference USA game, Chadwell just had, we're recording this on Tuesday, Chadwell just had his presser, and he was talking about how there's just no fire in this team in the second half. That's what showed up this past weekend. And I think when you want to take these big, long dogs against these teams that have look ahead, like we have UTEP against hosting Liberty here, can UTEP stand up and do something? Do they have the fire? Do they want to do it? So I went back to Dimmel. You look at him 2018, 2019, in this exact same spot. Couldn't make a bowl. First 2 years at UTEP, they lost 30-16 and to Rice, and then 39-7 to Southern Miss in both of those 2 years. It was just a complete disaster. But Chadwell in this spot just had a really bad spot last year. Coastal had locked up the Sun Belt bid. They played James Madison in the season ender. Didn't need to play the game whatsoever. James Madison blew them out 47-14. Now, James Madison was heavily amped for that game, considering they couldn't go to a bowl. But, Liberty failed to cover against UMass in week 12. A lot of that had to deal with the second half. I wouldn't be shocked at all. I'm tweening here on UTEP because I think Liberty probably gives you a little bit of effort in the first quarter, and then they're done. They could care less about this point spread. They want the win. They're going to move on, keep it undefeated. Either a live bet on UTEP or a UTEP second half play is in scope.
Let's go to the Great Northwest, to the Apple Cup, where Washington will host Washington State. Spread Washington like 16.5-point favorite here as the Huskies look to maintain their undefeated record, control their own destiny. They will be in the Pac-12 championship. They clinched that last week. Although for our Oregon State bet, pretty ugly. Washington, 30% post-game win probability. They benefited from Oregon State missing 3 fourth downs, -2 turnover margin, and then a safety on a snap over the head, which ultimately was the difference. So don't really think they deserve to win that game, but they did pull through, as they've done for about a month and a half now. It hasn't been pretty. Washington State been very Jekyll and Hyde all season long. This is a great spot. Look, Washington off that Oregon State win. They know they're going to be in the Pac-12 championship, but they know they have to stay undefeated. This is their in-state rival. I don't know if I can get here with Washington State. I saw you put it in, so I'm curious to hear your case. But the two things that I'm worried about: one, Washington's biggest weakness on defense is their run D. Washington State doesn't run it at all, never. And when they do, they don't run it well. And then Washington State, they've had these weeks where teams drop 8 on them and their offense goes into a complete and utter shell. And that's kind of Washington's MO in a way. So they could employ that here rather easily. So the spot is all Washington State, but I'm worried about a couple of the matchup issues on each side of the ball. What do you see here with the Cougs?
Well, I was tweening on this. I made it 16.5. I paused on Sunday on openers with 17. I shouldn't have paused. So I took it at 16.5, and I think it's just going to get pounded probably down to 14. There's a couple things in the numbers when you cross match these two teams together. I didn't see a huge advantage for Washington when they're throwing the ball. I don't think Michael Penix is going to get any resistance in what he wants to do throwing the ball. Washington State's 3-3-5 defense goes cover 3 and cover 1. And Penix, that's pretty much his wheelhouse. So what we've seen from the offense is what we're going to see from Washington here. The question is can Cam Ward keep up? And I would contend that if you go back and look at the Washington State schedule, teams that are in the top 50 in defensive havoc give Cam Ward all kinds of problems. We're talking massive amounts of fumbles, massive amounts of turnover-worthy plays. Washington is not a havoc-minded defense whatsoever. Extremely low rated in tackles for loss, passes defensed, fumbles, creating fumbles. It just doesn't happen. That means Cam Ward is going to be able to do what he does, which, 50 points up against Colorado. They had a lot of help there. But, Washington State is above national average in success rate against quarters coverage, which is all Washington runs. Washington has pretty good overall numbers as a pass defense, but with quarters, they only generate a 44% success rate. Cam Ward's going to be able to take advantage of that. He has the entire year. If Washington can't cause any havoc and get in the backfield, Cam Ward can keep up here. And so I'm going to be backing Washington State. I don't know when the stop price is. It may be 14, but really it's a pretty easy formula with Washington State. If Cam Ward's not going to be harassed, he's going to be able to do his thing.
One more here. Georgia, who has really hit their stride. I mean, they dominated Tennessee. Carson Beck was super impressive. A lot of great throws in that game. I really thought that he took the next step in that game in particular. The Bulldogs know that they will face. By the way, that was in there during this 27, 28 game win streak. That was the only game against a ranked opponent in a true road environment. Georgia's definitely had a beneficial schedule during this stretch, but wow, they were not phased in Knoxville before the SEC championship, where they'll take on Alabama. They will head to Georgia Tech. Georgia 24-point favorite. This market seems pretty just dead. I haven't seen a lot of movement here, or heard really anything about anybody on either side here. Georgia Tech, one of the most explosive offenses in the country, but that's a really hard formula to live by against this Georgia defense. Georgia Tech, I will say, is very Jekyll and Hyde. Like, if you look at their results, it's which Georgia Tech are you going to get? Can they, put up the question is, can they put up enough points here to cover this number, get in the back door? What will Georgia's mindset be? What do you see here? I'm right around market, so I don't have much.
I think the number's too low. I have it at 26, but this isn't a regular game, right? I mean, we're right before the SEC championship game. Kirby came out at his presser and said, Brent Key's an offensive line coach turned into a head coach. When that happens, you have a physical game where everybody wants to establish the rush. So it's kind of some things that I heard against Tennessee, right? We want to control the line of scrimmage, which they did on both sides of the ball. But that offense was more Carson Beck passing than it was, dominating in the ground game. So I feel like I kind of fell for this before, even though the game did clearly go under last week with Georgia. I have a feeling, mathematically, I don't see it. I have a feeling this game goes under 2. Georgia Tech, I've said this all along, the way to gash the Georgia defense is to run outside zone. Georgia Tech doesn't run that at all. They run all inside zone. They have a pretty average success rate, no real explosives. So I don't expect them to get it done against Georgia whatsoever. When you go to the other side of the ball, it just depends on what Georgia wants to do. Do you think they're going to air it out and go completely berserk on Georgia Tech with there's no animosity between these two coaches? I say absolutely not. I think the number is way too high here. I don't see Georgia lining up and going deep. I see them just calling an abnormal amount of run plays here. I think it's important too that I know Georgia Tech, they show up in these spots where they shouldn't, and they do these great performances, but they're outside the top 100 in quality drives, line yards, and standard down success rate. They're 115th.
It's all explosives. I think they lead the country in explosiveness,
which isn't going to work.
But you can't really rely on that against Georgia.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work here. So I have no money down. If I was going to put money down, it'd be under 60.
All right, before we get to the marquee matchups, as a reminder, the BBOC podcast presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if your first bet loses. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's get to the marquee matchups of the weekend. All right, let's start on Friday in a big one in the American. So the way that the American boils down, if SMU, but hopefully some of you followed future there, if they beat Navy, they are in. And then they will face the winner of UTSA Tulane. If SMU somehow loses to Navy, they're 18.5 point favorites, then it would come down to a computer composite tiebreaker between SMU and the loser of this game to see who would go face the winner of UTSA Tulane. Tulane is a 3.5 point favorite here. This game's at 3:30 Eastern on Friday at Tulane, over under 51.5. So when I look at Tulane, they can't run the ball really. I mean, just it's been a struggle as far as efficiency is concerned. Their pass defense remains a bit vulnerable, and those issues have showed up over the past, I want to say month or so. I mean, look, they beat North Texas by 7, Rice by 2, East Carolina by 3, Tulsa by 2. Finally, they got margin last week against FAU, but this is a team that's been just getting by the skin of its teeth. UTSA, meanwhile, Frank Harris fully healthy now. He was absolutely dominant last week against South Florida. Threw for 411 and 3 touchdowns, added another 112 on the ground with 3 more touchdowns, and basically sat the fourth quarter. He looks healthy. UTSA is playing its best football of the season. What do you see here in this major American showdown?
I really like Meep here. I like UTSA a lot. Frank Harris has been on fire since week 9 against East Carolina. He's had 8 touchdowns to 1 interception. There's no real advantages here in the secondary packages that Tulane's going to put out there. They're 80th in coverage grading per PFF, but the real stat in this game is on target rate allowed. Now, remember, on target is a statistic that checks to see if the wide receiver, the tight end, whoever's catching the ball, if they don't come out of stride, it hits them in the numbers. They don't have to move whatsoever. Tulane's defense is 130th in opposing passing and targets, like on target rate allowed. Everybody
Secondary's been bad.
Secondary's bad, real bad. And is there, can UTSA establish the run? They're 105th in success rate. Robert Henry and Kavorian Barnes, there's just not a lot of elusiveness, a lot of juice. But Frank Harris, on the other hand, now that he's fully healthy, changes that whole dynamic completely. Now, when I flip to the other side, Tulane is near 60% in rush play selection versus the pass. They're really good and their rushing success rate is kind of hard to discern what's going on with this team. They are really good at inside zone. They're really bad at outside zone. They're kind of okay on counter man, some of this other stuff that's doing that. UTSA allows explosives against inside zone, and they dominate outside zone with the front 7. So I expect Tulane to have a couple of explosives in inside zone, but nothing moving the chains, nothing methodical. Green Wave are going to be scoring or getting into position just on explosives. That's it. So it's going to be one of those live betting things where you're going to have a drought of points and then you're going to have a flurry of points. So, in so many categories mirror each other with these two teams. They have the same EPA, expected points, explosiveness on offense and defense. They mirror each other in havoc and havoc allowed. They mirror each other in finishing drives. There's a small advantage for UTSA on offense in that point. Frank Harris is healthy. They are rolling. Tulane is not. And the Tulane run concept that they want to implement is going to get stopped by the UTSA defense. I'll take 3.5 or better on Meep.
Yep, I agree. It's Meep or nothing. The only concern is Jeff Traylor. Any distractions there with some of these rumors and job openings? That's one little concern I have. But I think this Tulane team has been just teetering and getting away with some of these close wins. And
do you think it's kind of personality based, though? I mean, you and I are working for Action Network, right? If somebody comes in and offers us $1 billion and we have signed a deal and not told anybody, would we punt it in the last week or two? Is that a testament to your character? I think yeah, it's, but I mean, like, it's
so I agree, but is it like, what was it a distraction for him? Like, was he
right?
It was taken away from like the prep? Was he doing interviews and but I'm not sure. I think that the players will still be fine. I don't know. It's probably
the only reason I ask that is because like Traylor doesn't seem like the kind of guy that loves the camera, loves the attention, loves the lights. So I think UTSA is the one, maybe the one case where your head coach is interviewing, but it might not affect the team.
Yeah, he came out and he nixed the rumors earlier today. So, I mean, sometimes that's just coaches talking, but maybe that's a good thing.
What's funny is how much the A&M fans don't want him.
Yeah, I think it would be a good hire. He's not a sexy name, but he's built that program up, and that's
yep.
I think Texas A&M would actually be a good hire.
Agree.
All right, let's stay on Friday and head to prime time out west for the Civil War, when Oregon will host Oregon State. Oregon close to a 2-touchdown favorite here. This game Friday night in Eugene, over under 62.5. Bo Nix last week 6 touchdowns in the first half. By the way, I'm seeing that Daniels is the Heisman favorite now. I could not have been more turned off by what Daniels and LSU were doing last week. Begging to get, like, here's the thing. People say, well, Daniels can't help the fact that his defense stinks. Yeah, but he's also getting possessions all the way into the end of the game.
Yeah.
Because they can't get a stop. Knicks could have 12 touchdowns last week.
Yep.
If they're not blowing out these teams. Daniels begging and going in and running up fake stats, hollow stats against Georgia State. That does nothing for me as a Heisman voter. So I'm sorry. Well, I ultimately think that Daniels isn't going to be playing the last weekend. Knicks will be playing Washington. He wins that game. It's a good performance. I think Nick's going to win the Heisman.
Shout out to my friends over at The Athletic. They put together a Heisman straw poll every year, and it's shocked me the last 2 years how accurate it's been. Like, they're doing this weeks leading up, and they graded on a point basis, like a 3-2-1, first, second, third place. Bo Nix had a comfortable lead on Jaden Daniels in their straw poll. So considering how accurate it's been the last couple of years, I absolutely 100% don't care that the odds are now favoring Jaden Daniels, because the people that are in charge of a large voice of the Heisman voters are saying it's all Bo Nix. So I don't know. We'll see how many touchdowns. I mean, he's still got 2 games to go. Oregon can't lose, so we'll see.
Yeah, he can't lose. But Daniels won't be playing that weekend. So if Oregon wins out, I think it's Nix's. But Oregon State, I played Oregon State plus 14, playing down to 13. There's a couple games that I'm going to get to throughout here. It's similar to the last week of the NFL regular season when I always play this angle. There's a bunch of teams that are in must-win spots, right? Got to win for the Pac-12 championship. If Oregon loses this game and Arizona wins, Arizona goes to the Pac-12 championship. Arizona, by the way, Pac-12 South champs. They just, as Jed Fish said, they just happened to change the rule this year. But Oregon State, look, I mean, last week they're favored at home against Washington, and they were the better team, 70% post-game win expectancy. Now you're catching 2 touchdowns. I know this may be a little bit of a letdown, but this is the Civil War. This is their in-state rival, and they're going to be up for this game. They could ruin Oregon's season. Also, if you look at Oregon, they've just demolished a bunch of inferior teams this season. But if you look at teams that are, close to their level, the Texas Techs, the Washingtons, the USCs, I mean, they haven't beat anybody by more than 2 touchdowns. So, and look, Oregon's run D has some holes from an efficiency standpoint. So I think Oregon State will be able to move it a bit, control the clock here. And I mean, Jonathan Smith catching 2 touchdowns in a rivalry game, for what it's worth. Let me pull up the stats. He's 14-6, 70% against the spread as a road underdog, covering by a touchdown per game. I think this is inflated due to an unlucky loss last week that Oregon State had, and then just everyone's, seeing Oregon of late, knowing that they have to win. I think it's too many points. I think this thing will be fairly competitive throughout. I like the Beavers. What do you think?
I make it 12, so I do think the number's a little inflated. It would tell me that there's value on Oregon State, but there is a serious problem in this game for the Beavers. A serious problem. So one point that you have to handicap is the fact that Oregon State misses tackles like there is no tomorrow. They are graded 131st per PFF in tackle grading. That gets worse when you look at broken tackles allowed, 130th. Sorry, similar, but it's still bad. Tackling is a huge problem. You go back into their box scores, right? They missed 9 tackles against Washington. That's not good. Go back to Arizona a few weeks ago. Oregon State missed 20 tackles. That's really bad. That's like worst in the nation. So you think, well, that's going to be a problem every game. And they were able to stick around with Washington and keep it to a 2-point game. The problem is when you face Oregon. Oregon is second in the nation in creating missed tackles with their elite wide receiver duo of Troy Franklin, their slot Tez Johnson, their running back Bucky Irving. These guys are elusive machines. Getting hands on them is tough. Toughest in the nation. This is the biggest discrepancy I've ever seen in broken tackles created versus broken tackles allowed. And that is going to, we can handicap this left and right. passing trees, run concepts, all of this. But the fact of the matter is Oregon State is just not tackling people whatsoever. Now they run a heavy amount of rushing attempts, the Beavers do, in outside zone. And that's really been the Oregon defense's bread and butter. I mean, they are a low success rate, low amount of explosives. We can argue the kind of rush offenses that Oregon's faced up to this point, but those are the two things that really keep me off this Oregon State, which, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking about playing Oregon on the team total over, just for the simple fact of the missed tackles. Oregon State could probably keep up and cover the spread, but I don't have to worry about that. Really, this whole missed tackles thing is such a huge problem for Oregon State, and it's not going away. So I do think the number's inflated, though. If you had to play the side, I'd lean Oregon State.
Yeah, I mean, I think Oregon's going to have success moving the ball here. I mean, they don't really throw it downfield a ton, which is good for.
Oh, Bo Nixon's like the lowest ADOT in the nation. Like it's really
that's good for Oregon State because their corners aren't the greatest covering downfield as we saw against Adunze last week. But yeah, missed tackles could be a major issue if Oregon State isn't buttoned up here. Let's head before we get to Ohio State, Michigan. Let's talk a little Iron Bowl. Alabama will travel to Auburn Saturday, 3:30 Eastern on CBS. Alabama is a 14.5-point favorite here, over under 48.5. I reluctantly went back to the well with Auburn. Look, I'm not going to say Alabama's peaking at the right time, but this look-ahead line was 10.5, and Alabama did nothing. I mean, they played their tin horn game. Auburn obviously has to get, and that's close to where I was, 10.5-ish. Auburn clearly has to get downgraded last week. Although I just think that they didn't prepare for the game and were completely in overlook mode to this game. They had to get downgraded. You lost it outright as a 27-point favorite. But I still can't get to over 13 in this game. And I expect they'll obviously be much more focused. They'll actually have a game plan here. Hugh Freeze, one of the best in the business there. They were catching the same number against Georgia, and I bet them. And they covered with ease. And now you're catching the same number against Alabama. Alabama is getting up there in the power ratings, so they're not Georgia yet. I mean, it's just, you want to talk about a spot where a team shows up after getting embarrassed. This is the one, and you're playing your rival. It's also Jordan Hare for the Iron Bowl. So weird things happen here. For what it's worth, Alabama 2-7 against the spread in Jordan Hare since 2005. They've lost 5 of 9 outright. And then 2 of their wins came by 2 and 5 as double-digit favorites. Also, you have Hugh Freeze, who's 28-14 against the spread as an underdog, covering by 7 points per game. 4-1 against the spread against Nick Saban in Alabama. Since 2005, Hugh Freeze, 6th most profitable coach out of 551 Interaction Labs database when catching points. This is just catch the falling knife. Buy low on Auburn now that you're getting over 2 touchdowns. If this line is 13.5, pass. 14.5, we'll play it. Trust the spot. We'll trust Jordan Hare voodoo. Trust the Freeze preparation and Auburn bouncing back. I've seen worse Auburn teams give Alabama a fight right to the end in this same exact spot.
Weren't they 21-point underdog against Bryce Young? It was yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, so I think you got to take Auburn over 2 touchdowns.
To me, I'm going to play a different angle here. I think this is a Auburn first half all the way, and this is an Alabama second half all the way. And, you're going to get probably the best half of football from Auburn the entire year in the first half, based on the fact of what happened against New Mexico State. Hugh Freeze already installing the game plan last week, taking off for recruiting. I think you're just going to get
You'll get the kitchen sink too, like any trick play that they have, the best game plan. And we talked about this before. How Kiffin says Freeze is the best game planner, adjuster. Yep. So you're going to get, I assume, an amazing script here.
And that shows in the middle 8 numbers. I brought this up with Freeze a couple times so far this year. I mean, Auburn is 3rd in the middle 8. That's the last 4 minutes of the second quarter. That's the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. point differential wise, Auburn's one of the best in the nation. Now, Saban's not a bad coach, but he's only 34th in middle eight. Like the middle eight is a really big deal. That just shows how good Hugh Freeze at game management. Now, the problem that I have with Auburn and why I'm going to be looking to play Alabama live the second that 4-minute tick is up in the third quarter is this is still Hugh Freeze that coached Ole Miss and beat Saban twice. And there are things like once the kitchen sink goes out, once all these plays that are not on tape and all that's gone out the window and we're sitting around in the mid third quarter and it just comes on to, manning up talent on talent. I think there's some real problems for Auburn here. Everything that they do on the offensive side of the ball, Alabama has an answer for. Alabama is elite against zone read. They allow negative explosives. They are 60% in success rate in stopping the kind of run concepts that Auburn has. By the way, Auburn can't throw the ball. I don't know. They have no success. They have no explosiveness with Peyton Thorne. Maybe it comes in the offseason, but it's just not been there the entire year. And then you ask, can the defense stop the inside zone read of Jalen Milroe, Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams? The answer is sometimes they have middling numbers against inside zone, but I'm really worried about how well Jalen Milroe throws the deep ball. Now, this Auburn secondary, they're top 20 in PFF grading, so they should be able to handle it. But Milroe has not made a single mistake this entire season. No turnover-worthy plays on throws over 20 yards. I don't think Alabama comes out and shows any of this or shows any dominance in the first two quarters. But I think the second that middle eight is over and we've thrown the kitchen sink out, I think it's going to be a different ball game. So Auburn first half for me, I wouldn't be surprised if they're tied or leading. Bama for me is a live bet coming in the third quarter.
All right, good stuff there. Let's get to our final marquee game, and it's the most highly anticipated game of the weekend, the game between Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan is looking to win its third straight after some down years for sure. For what it's worth, Michigan leads the all-time series 60-51 with 6 ties in there. I'm sure there's some like disputed results in games that were played in like the 1900s. Largest victory, 86-0 Michigan in 1902. Michigan here, 3.5-point favorite. You've seen times it's certain books it's ticked down to 3. Get some buyback there. I'm having some trouble with this game. I mean, from a numbers perspective, I think this is a little short. I think a lot of people are overreacting. I mean, I was on Maryland last week, and it was a terrible spot for Michigan in between Penn State and Ohio State. And then, I mean, look at Ohio State against Maryland. It was pretty much, I mean, for a whole half, it was just, they were in jeopardy of losing that game, even with a pick 6. Until some a little run in the second half, which Ohio State has done a number of times this year. They just have these like stretches in the second half where they somehow cover these big numbers. So hopefully you haven't been betting against, if you're listening, Ohio State every week, because most weeks they probably don't deserve to cover these numbers, and they're finding a way to do so.
Yep.
So when I look at Michigan, Harbaugh won't be on the sidelines for this game, and under Sherrone Moore, they're like Harbaugh on steroids. Like, they're so conservative and they run so much. But part of that is because of the offensive line. I've talked about this. This is one of the parts of the handicap of the Penn State game. Their tackles are a problem. And they just couldn't drop McCarthy back. And then eventually they didn't even have the pass in the second half, had to roll them out. Even, Henderson was hurt, the Arizona State transfer. He's been bad. Like, just the tackles have been bad. They can't pass protect. And then their offensive line in general is just a step below where it was last year, which means the run game hasn't been as good. So, and this Ohio State defense is real. Jim Knowles, a worthy Royals Award candidate. He's won the award in the past.
Good thing he's not in the group of 5.
Yeah. I joke that a group of 5 coaches never won it. I mean, give me some Willie Korn. Give me some Brendan Marion. Some Bill Brecken from Miami, Ohio. I mean, there's some names. Come on, at least put their names in there, even if you're not going to pick them. But anyway, I digress. So I think that the Michigan offense it's not going to have much success here. And they're going to go super conservative, as we've seen. But I also don't trust the Ohio State offense. I don't trust Kyle McCord against a really good Michigan defense. Although we saw some cracks last week with, some of the corners. I haven't really faced, many competent passing attacks all year until they faced Maryland last week. But the Ohio State offensive line also has some issues. So when I look at this game, I think there's a little bit of a market overreaction to the result last week. I mean, look, both these teams don't have great data points. Maryland, pretty much the same. And, Michigan, Penn State, I would probably favor Michigan a little bit. Penn State actually started to throw the ball before that game, and that was on the road. Ohio State played Maryland and Penn State at home. So I don't know. And this look ahead line was higher than this. I think it's a little bit of interaction, but you have the sign stealing angle and Harbaugh not on the sidelines, which have to be factors. So when I look at this game, I show a little bit of line value in Michigan, but I just can't, I'm assuming they're going to have a really good game plan to take Harrison now and not let Harrison beat them. And, I think both teams are going to come out really conservative. This is a huge game. Winner goes to the College Football Playoff. Yes, I mean disrespect to Iowa. So I think that there's going to be a feeling out process. Let's not make a mistake early. We know our defenses are what, we want to rely on here. So I think like 4th and 1 at midfield. Punt. I don't see in the first half. One of these teams gets a little ahead. You do have some explosive receivers. You do have questionable offensive lines with great pass rush. You could see some mistakes when either one of these teams tries to open it up. So I'm liking the first half under 23. I just can't see either one of these teams having much success. And I think both are going to be super conservative early on. Ton of athletes on the field. I could see it opening up. I could see once it opens up, like I said, some turnovers happening. So I haven't locked in a bet yet, but I'm feeling a first half under here. I know that you put in Ohio State before you get to that case. Any thoughts on the first half under?
No, I agree. These games like this always turn into a 3 or 4 series of them feeling each other out to see what the other one has. And then this same thing happened in the game last year. And then Jim Knowles started line up in cover 0 and Michigan started throwing over their head. So things really got amped up in the middle of the second quarter there. So for the first quarter, I think you're going to get the same thing. You're just going to get, and that's all that Michigan is right now.
Yeah, you could get like a 9-minute Michigan field goal drive to start the game.
Yeah, I mean, my handicap is I by the way, I think it's the first time I bet Ohio State this entire season. But you have to ask yourself, what's happened to JJ McCarthy since Sherrone Moore took over? 19 of 31 passing in the last 2 weeks, no TDs, an interception. He had 4 turnover-worthy throws against Maryland. What is going on with JJ McCarthy? Heisman leaderboard, gone. Completely gone. Now, I get it from Sherrone Moore's standpoint of I'm running Blake Corum straight at Penn State's defense. They can't stop it, so I'm just going to do that. I get it. That works, right? You're not there for style points and to get JJ McCarthy the Heisman. You're there to win games. So that works. But Michigan still has a major explosiveness problem. 114th in rush EPA, 66th in pass EPA. Not a ton of explosives from this group whatsoever. Maryland had 6 passes more than Michigan of 15 yards. They had way more explosives through the air than Michigan did. Blake Corum's carrying the entire offense right now. He splits carries between inside zone, man blocking concepts, but still no explosives. He had 0 20-yard runs against the Maryland D. So when you go to the other side, I think that's where the handicap comes in, because whether it's the offensive line being banged up, Harbaugh not being there, inefficiency with McCarthy, or maybe Moore never wanted this to be a passing offense in the first place. I mean, that's not really his background. So I don't know what's going on with the offense, but it's become prehistoric. Ohio State, on the other hand, McCord to Harrison connection is about the only thing that works with this group right now. We can, talk about other parts of it, but to me, this is, can Michigan stop what Marvin Harrison does? Now, to do that, you need to go into Marvin Harrison Jr.'s route tree. He is the best route runner in college football. He's going to be the best route runner, just like his dad, in the NFL. So you have to ask yourself, is Harrison's route tree going to be able to take advantage of Michigan? Well, Harrison runs hitches and crossers. So if you're not familiar, I mean, cross pretty easy, but if you're not familiar with a hitch, he's going to run up the field, come to a complete stop, turn around, take 2 steps up forward towards McCord. That has been the bread and butter of McCord to Harrison the entire year. Michigan allows an extreme number of explosives to people running the hitch. Now, that's just other people running hitch. That's not Marvin Harrison running hitch. So I believe the best of Ohio State's offense, which is that route by Marvin Harrison Jr., has been really hard for Michigan to defend this year. And I think that's going to play out here no matter what coverage they're in. No explosives from McCarthy. Ohio State's run defense dominates inside zone. McCord is actually really good against cover 3, which is all Michigan has run this year. Put the bet in on Ohio State. Let's go. And there has been buyback off that 3. That 3 came down at some of the sharp shops as you and I are recording and came back to 3.5. I agree with you. I make the number 4, but I don't think there's a way for Michigan to stop Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think Ohio State purposely kept the ball out of his hands last week to keep him off film about what they want to do. But that's what's going to happen. Crossers and hitch.
Yeah, can't wait to watch that one. I think it'll be super slow start, so hopefully we can avoid any mistakes. But McCarthy, yeah, he's dropped off because part of it's the protection. We talked about this. They haven't really played anybody, and then they didn't let him throw, dropping back against Penn State after they were getting just crushed on the offensive line early. Go back to last year. McCarthy's numbers under pressure were horrendous, and now he doesn't have tackles. Ohio State has good edge rushers. So I don't think that Michigan's going to have much success dropping McCarthy back. They're going to have to rely on their run game, be methodical, be conservative, which is how I think this game starts out. All right, good stuff there. Let's get to some rapid fire. I'll mention a couple Big 12 dogs I like. Texas Tech, catching 13 at 14. Somewhere around there against Texas. I think this line's inflated. If you go just based on numbers, you can get to here, just their seasonal numbers. But you have to remember that Texas Tech played 2 games with Jake Strong, and they got blown out. Right? That's 20% of their season, their third-string quarterback. They also played 2 other games with Morton completely hampered. He couldn't throw the ball. West Virginia was one of those games. Morton's come back. He's fully healthy. They've won 3 straight. And when they've had a healthy Morton or Shuck under center this year, they've lost 2 games. That's it. To Oregon in a game they could have won, and then a double overtime in a game against Wyoming. I think all the pressure's on Texas here. They also have some injuries on offense. I think Sanders and Worthy are going to play, but they also lost their running back for the season. But this Texas Tech team, one of the best 6-5 teams you'll see because of the quarterback injuries. They can come in here loose. Texas has to win this game. And you know what Texas Tech is? I mean, even more 4th down gambles. And they're going to just keep the pedal and put the pressure on Texas here. I think that there's value on the Red Raiders catching 13 plus, I'll call it. For what it's worth, over the past 15 seasons, Texas 11-18-1 against the spread. 37.9% is a home conference favorite of more than a touchdown. So, yeah, I think Texas Tech's a bit undervalued in the market because of the quarterback issues they had. Running game's been good all year, even with some of the quarterback issues. Pass defense has some holes that I'm sure Texas will take advantage of at times, but I think Texas Tech's live in this game, and they'll give Texas a scare.
And I mean, Texas is not trying to cover this spread. What are they actually playing for? They're in the Big 12 championship game. I know that you want to be in the cultural playoff, and I know you want to win the national title, and you have to win the game for that. But there's no style points. I mean, no one's going to give you anything special for getting to 14 here and covering this game. And Texas Tech is playing really good football right now, so I completely agree with you. Texas just needs to win this game to keep national title hopes alive, but they're playing in the Big 12 championship game no matter what. So
I don't know. That's not confirmed. Actually,
is that not confirmed? Even if they lose this game.
So if they lose this game, the Big 12 said that they'll come out and clarify tiebreakers after. Like, what is going on? So I've never seen this before.
After the fact, what are you talking about?
Yeah, after the game, they said they'll clarify because it's too complicated. So
they're hoping that they all knock. They're desperately desperately hoping nobody's tied at the end of this shit, because that's what they're saying.
Yeah, the most likely scenario is if Texas wins and Oklahoma State wins. It'll be Texas versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's a 17-point favorite against BYU. Another dog that I think is live in the Big 12, which would knock Oklahoma out, is TCU. TCU catching double digits here. I think TCU is another team. Yeah. Number one, they're playing to get the bowl eligibility. Prideful team, means a lot to them. They went to the national championship last year. And this is a team that lost so much from that team, especially on offense at the skill position players. You expected them to struggle on offense early on. Well, they've started to figure it out. Josh Hoover, the freshman quarterback, took some bumps and bruises early on in the season. He's playing tremendous football. They found their quarterback of the future. His first 4 games of action, 57% completion percentage, 6.5 yards per attempt. Last 3 games, 68.5% completion percentage, 9.1 yards per attempt. He's thrown for 300, 353, and 400. He's found a really good connection with his tight end, Jared Wiley. But this TCU team, I think, is a bit undervalued because of their struggles they had early on in the season. And then, they have a freshman quarterback who came in and struggled. I think they're really finding their footing here. Again, all the pressure on Oklahoma. Oklahoma needs to win to keep their Big 12 title hopes alive. And this Oklahoma team, number one, they've been really lucky in turnovers in red zone. But they needed a 100-yard pick six and a late fumble to beat BYU and the backup quarterback. Could have lost to UCF at home, lost to Kansas, lost to Oklahoma State. I mean, since that Texas pretty fortunate win, they had one good performance and a blowout win over West Virginia. That's it. I think this line's too high. Dylan Gabriel, I think, is going to play. Farouk, their second lead receiver, I think is going to play, but they're banged up. We don't know. So that just throws a wrench into it. I think this line's too high for a TCU team that's peaking at the right time. Will come in here, won't be afraid of the stage. I like the Horned Frogs in what could turn into a shootout.
Yeah, I think to those of you that were betting the Oklahoma under 9.5 in the season, if you want to hedge that, you can try to get Oklahoma live, because I think TCU is very live in this game to win this game. I think it should be in all the round robins. I think you should partake in the 10.5 that's out there in the market. But if you're saddled with Oklahoma under 9.5, then you're going to be looking for Oklahoma live in this, hopefully below less than 3. But I think you're absolutely going to get it in this game. TCU is playing very well, and what Oklahoma did up at BYU is not a fluke. So go ahead, whatever futures you have, whatever you might not have, whatever your slate is financially on this game, that is the way you should play it.
Let's go to the Bluegrass and go to Kentucky at Louisville. Louisville's 7-point favorite here. Louisville has already locked up a bid in the ACC championship game, but obviously this is a big in-state rivalry, so I'm assuming they will get up for this. I don't really love the matchup for Kentucky's defense here. Offense, I still just can't figure out on a week-to-week basis. Numbers-wise, I lean Kentucky.
Yeah.
Don't have much here. Anything here?
Well, you can't back it because they've been god-awful. I mean, South Carolina ran them up a flagpole. Look, Kentucky's won 1 of their past 6 games. They're going bowling, but it doesn't look like they're going to get over their season win total of 6.5. It's just
I have.
Yeah, me too. Real struggle to get anything going on, and passing attempts and passing downs has just not been there. Ray Davis limited to just 61 yards on the ground by South Carolina. Kentucky only had 2 explosive runs. I mean, that is just a major red flag against a South Carolina team that can't defend anybody on the ground. Louisville's defense is top 20 in EPA allowed. They don't allow explosives in the air or on the ground, so that kind of takes away Kentucky's big ability to bust one on the ground, but the Wildcats haven't been able to do that lately. So I'm not sure what tools they have on offense to get this done. Their defense, on the other hand, has fallen to 84th in defensive quality drives and defensive finishing drives. More importantly, not being noticed, their red zone has fallen all the way to 113th in red zone efficiency. I don't know what the number is. I don't want to back Louisville in this spot because you have overlooked the ACC championship game, but I just can't take a Kentucky number. They're just going in the wrong direction in every way.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to the Mountain West. San Jose State at UNLV.
This game is a banger.
Yeah, this game's awesome. San Jose State's peaking at the right time. UNLV has been peaking all season. Huge comeback win last week. By the way, my round robin last week, which would have paid so much. I haven't been able to get a backdoor touchdown all year. I mean, I'm like 0 for my last 37 tries, even in like if you count the NFL. Yeah, and Buffalo almost got there, but they fumbled at the goal line. I needed UNLV. I had my first 3 legs in. I needed UNLV, and then I needed Illinois. And after all the failed backdoors, I got to watch that Iowa vomit show go down and score a touchdown in the final minutes after Illinois dropped the pass. That was horrendous. Anyway, it was an exciting hour because that San Jose State comeback. And the UNLV comeback against Air Force, they had to get the stop at the red zone. The Air Force sprung it in there like 7th-string quarterback who completes a pass on like 3rd and long. But UNLV holds on. As of right now, if they win this game, they will host the Mountain West Championship, and then they will play the winner of Air Force and Boise State. Boise State's a 6.5-point favorite. So if the chalk holds, UNLV will host Boise. If UNLV loses,
It's all computers.
It's all computers, computer composite. I think UNLV still would be the one based on their lead right now. Would San Jose State jump Boise or Air Force if they beat UNLV? I don't know. So yeah, it gets messy. But all these teams play each other, and some combination will be in the Mountain West Championship. UNLV probably there no matter what. I guess you can't lose by like 50. But UNLV's been an ATM all season, best against the spread record in college football, with just one loss against the number. UNLV 3.5-point favorites here against a San Jose State team that has really figured it out. They had a really rough start to the year. They lost some key pieces from last season's team, and they had a tough non-conference schedule. But they're peaking at the right time. UNLV obviously still playing great football. UNLV sitting here about 3-point favorite, over under 58. I'm a bit worried about the San Jose State run defense. It's still an issue, but I have a sneaky suspicion they're going to win this game. More of a gut than anything else. What do you see here?
So San Jose State really needs Air Force to win that game on Friday. I believe if Boise wins against Air Force on Friday, San Jose State might not have a path to make the Mountain West Championship. And I'm just trying to predict motivation here. Not saying that San Jose State's going to be in Vegas and lay down. I would, but I'm going to say they'd be in Vegas and lay down. But I'm not sure if their motivation is going to be affected on Saturday by what happens between Air Force and Boise on Friday. But I don't know. I would say, keep your thumb on the pulse of the tiebreakers and the computer projections and all that after the Boise Air Force game to see if San Jose State has a shot to make it, even if they beat UNLV. But they can take advantage of a very poor UNLV secondary. Siobhan Cordero dominates cover 3 from a success rate and an explosive standpoint. And that's the coverage that you're going to see from UNLV. So, I mean, Siobhan Cordero is going to get his. Now, the question is, can the San Jose State defense stop the UNLV rushing attack? Oh, boy. The Spartans run defense as follows. Inside zone. They have a 38% success rate against inside zone, and everything's an explosive. Against man concepts, 43% success rate. That's bad. And they allow explosives. It doesn't matter.
They lost their 2 best defensive linemen in program history from last year's team. So the drop-off in the run D was expected.
And so what's funny is like, I know those charts that I put out on Twitter that I show everybody about the run concepts. The success rate numbers are bad for San Jose State. Do you know how they get worse? When you throw in what they've done against those run concepts against 12. Now, they haven't faced it against 22 or 21, but when they have multiple tight ends, that success rate goes even lower on defense about stopping it. Like, this UNLV offense is a chore. If you're not good at stopping the run and you're not good at stopping the run with 2 tight ends on the field, UNLV has got a bag of tricks they're ready to shove in your face. I took UNLV. I have money down on 3. I wouldn't buy it at 3.5, and I think the number's going against me. There's a lot of love for San Jose State, like yourself, in the market, and I respect it. But the defense is so bad. And I don't know. I'm just on this UNLV train. I think I might bet them in the Mountain West Championship. I'm going to bet them in a bowl. As long as Brennan Marion is still calling plays and they're still rolling 22, 21, and 12 personnel out there, I'm all in on UNLV.
All right, let's go to a weird one. This is one of probably the hardest games to handicap of the weekend. Florida State, Florida rivalry game here. Florida is a 6.5-point favorite, over under 50.5. Let's see if there's any 7. I've been waiting on a 7.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that the tea leaves say it's not going to get there. So obviously the big news here is Jordan Travis is out for the season. I actually think Florida State could be left out if they're undefeated, depending on how other things happen. But that's just me. Some people say I'm crazy, but
I agree.
Florida, you agree?
Oh, so Action, I put out on Action Network how to bet the college football playoff. The conclusion is what's happened to Florida State and Jordan Travis completely opens up the door for Texas if they win out. I think Texas, with that win against Alabama, will have a strong enough strength of schedule, strength of record, which I believe is number 1, to hop a Florida State team whose strength of schedule is 60th. You're not going to send Tate Rodemaker to the damn playoff. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. So, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, Florida State could be eliminated this weekend. They could lose this game.
Yeah.
And they could lose to Louisville. I have it about an 8-point drop off from Travis to Rodemaker, which is steep. Rodemaker was decent against Louisville, but he basically was just last year when he got in, but he basically was just like throwing jump balls to Johnny Wilson. But Florida's also without Graham Mertz. They lost him. Max Brown, freshman, not highly recruited. I think he was like a 3-star. He came in. I didn't think he could throw it. I thought my Florida bet was cooked. By the way, did you get I sent you my Napier gif. Napier going for it on 4th down his own territory with Max Brown. That was scare money, don't make money, baby. And can we get a damn upset, by the way? Missouri comes 4th and 17. We haven't top 9 teams are like 101 since week 2. Top 5 teams are 41-1. It's crazy. Yeah. There's like so much parity, but all these top teams keep finding a way. The one upset on paper was Washington winning, of course, because we had Oregon State. Right. But Washington's a top 5 team. Yeah, they're just not losing. But anyway, so Florida will go to Max Brown. Now, here's the interesting thing. There's other things to worry about with Florida, like their offensive line. Now they're left. Well, yeah, their defense too, but they're on the offense. They were without their starting left tackle. So Damian George went to left tackle. He got hurt. They were down to like 3rd string offensive lineman. I give them credit. They were moving it on Missouri, even with Brown. But here's the thing: Billy Napier, his offense is RPO heavy. With go back to his time at Louisiana. Who did he have? Like Levi Lewis. He always had a mobile quarterback. It just seemed like Max Brown fits better.
Yep.
In the system, and like he's able to run the RPOs. Mertz isn't really a runner. He's he can get you some yardage when you need it, but Brown is a good runner. So it seemed like he was a better fit for the offense. So like I actually think that there's some upside there.
And Napier went straight to it too. Oh, I said his name, but I have to in this case because he directly went to Max Brown and called designed runs, and it worked.
Yep. Yeah. So now you get a full week of practice with them. I'm sure that's all they're going to be installing. Take heavy run, heavy RPO, and then 1 read, easy throws. Right, 1 read to, you'll get, you'll have some misdirection with Wilson, but you have your stud receiver that I'm sure you're going to have some easy 1 read throws for him. Florida State, on the other hand, what are you going to get from Rodemaker? It's hard to say. Our sample size isn't great. We have limited action against Louisville. We played North Alabama last week, but really fascinating game to break down. I actually think that there's some upside with this Florida quarterback change. All the pressure on Florida State, rivalry game. These kids know each other well in state. I think at the minimum, Florida's a good money line round robin piece. due to the uncertainty here. But do you have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Tate. Well, I mean, it's funny. How do you even come up with a number on this game? So the drop to Tate Rodemaker, I made it 6 points instead of 8, and that's because Tate Rodemaker at least has experience. Now he went 13 of 23 against North Alabama after the Jordan Travis injury. And when you look at his past, I mean, there's plenty of experience going back to 2020. He's got 7 TDs to 5 INTs. He's got nearly double amount of turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws. But when you go into that actual stat, because it's 5 to 9, right? 5 big-time throws in his career. Well, look at that. 3 of them came against North Alabama last week. So the true number is 2 big-time throws in his career, 9 turnover-worthy plays. An 8 out of 8.2, so he can at least pass beyond the line of scrimmage. So we'll see what he can do there. But FSU has an even distribution of run and pass, but you would think that they're going to rely on the run a little bit more with Trey Benson, but they haven't been that good. 93rd in rushing success rate. So Florida State and Rodemaker, they're going to be tasked with throwing downfield because I don't think Trey Benson and their running game is going to generate enough to get first downs. So Rodemaker is going to have to throw in this game. Now, when you go to the other side of the ball, that's where I got a little bit excited. Like, I kind of wanted to wait for the podcast before I put the bet in because I'm pretty sure I'm sliding it in on Florida, even though I'm not going to get a 7. Designed runs for Max Brown are the new Florida offense. 37 yards from designed runs. He got 12 on a scramble. He created missed tackle. He had 3 runs of 10 yards or more. There's nothing spectacular about that Florida State defense against zone rushing attempts. I think Max Brown is going to have himself a day here. And you know what?
Go back to what Drones ran for like 80 or 90 yards.
Yeah.
Castellanos for BC in a similar type of offense. He had success.
I'm nervous about putting a bet in on with the Florida defense, like in my back pocket, but I actually like Max Brown playing quarterback. I think he is a massive upgrade versus Florida State's Tate Rodemaker.
Yeah, you hope Florida's defense gets a couple guys back. They had a couple guys out last week to injury, but you're playing against a backup quarterback. And the units that step up in these rivalry games with a lot on the line and play up is usually the defense, right? Like Florida's defense will probably play up here. I also think both teams are going to go a little run heavier. I would lean under, and that favors the underdog here too. They're definitely going to make my round robin. I'll probably end up playing them, but I'm going to wait to see because I would love a 7.
It really helps though that like Florida. Okay, so they're 19th in defensive rushing success rate. The place that you attack Florida is with the pass because they're 115th.
Explosive passes.
Explosive passes. They're 128th in big play allowed. That's all pass. But is Tate Rodemaker going to be the one that's just blazing up and down the field with Keon and Johnny Wilson? I don't know if he can get it done. I mean, from a big time throw perspective, he's only made 2 of them against FBS opponents in his career since 2020. It doesn't look promising. So
yeah. Florida State's been super inconsistent all year. They have these halves where they just do nothing, and you got the dog god Billy Napier as an underdog. All he does is cover. One final one. Iowa State at Kansas State. Kansas State still in the mix. They need a lot of help to get to the Big 12 title because after the rule changes, they obviously need to win and beat Iowa State. Iowa State taking money. It's a bit surprising to me. Iowa State, their offense is so inefficient. They just need explosives. That's it. Their offense on a down-to-down basis is so bad. But their defense usually keeps them in games. You have anything here? Iowa State, Kansas State?
It definitely surprises me that Iowa State's taking money. I would bet Kansas State here. Iowa State can't generate any kind of rushing offense whatsoever. And that's just
they're completely relying on explosives.
Yeah. I mean, you're dead last. They're 133rd in offensive stuff rate. And that's not going to play against a Kansas State team that's 11th defensively in stuff rate. So I think this is going to be a lot of possessions for Kansas State, and they're 4th in offensive finishing drives. I'll probably fire on it by the time we get off the podcast. I don't understand why it's going the other way. I didn't see any. I mean, Iowa State finally had to step up in competition. Didn't work out so well.
All right, let's get to some trash. So we got to change my outfit here. Got a new outfit for this segment.
Tell me you're putting your Luigi hat on.
Got to put the Luigi hat on.
This is great.
All right, let's get to some trash. I'll go through these quickly. You just tell me if you agree or disagree. Central Michigan, plus 10.5 against Toledo. this is a spot where you have a team that needs to win to get the bowl eligibility against a team playing for nothing. Toledo had a comeback win last week against their rival to get revenge. They know they're playing Miami of Ohio in the MAC championship. What did they do last year in the same exact spot? They lost outright as a double-digit favorite. What did they do? They started Daquan Finn and their starters, and then they pulled everybody. I expect them to do the same. Central Michigan, I think, could win this game outright. Terrible spot for Toledo. Doubt they care. Just get healthy and get the fuck out of Mount Pleasant. Give me the chips.
Central Michigan sitting on 5 wins. Let's do it.
Ball State against Miami of Ohio. I like Ball State here. This is a team in my midseason MAC manifesto. I said buy on team. They've covered ever since. Miami of Ohio, they already know that they're playing Toledo. Wouldn't be shocked if they sit starters. They already lost Brett Gabbert. I doubt they're going to play the number 1 receiver who's dealing with a hamstring injury. Why would you risk Smith getting hurt? You're down to your backup quarterback. This game is going to be ugly as sin. I mean, this total's dropping. I think it should still keep going. It's down to like 35. More value in the dog. Ball State playing for pride here. And by the way, last year, these two teams in the final week of the regular season, both at 5-6, playing for bowl eligibility. Ball State was up 17-6 in the fourth quarter. Miami of Ohio came back and won in a miraculous fashion. They won 18-17, knocked Ball State out of a bowl. I think Ball State will be up for this. I think they went outright.
They've been knocked out of bowl contention for a while, and they continue to cover games. So absolutely all the way. This is such an overlooked spot for Miami of Ohio.
We already mentioned the Jacksonville State spot. This is, I think, the second best spot on the board. Nebraska. Nebraska at home against Iowa. I mean, Iowa with another ridiculous win last week. This is the worst offense in the country, arguably. There's no Cooper DeJean still. They were celebrating that like they won. Then now they go to Nebraska in a short week. They're already in the Big Ten championship. Nebraska playing for bowl eligibility. Super important for Matt Rule. I love backing these teams with a good coach in their first year, trying to go to a bowl. Nebraska's been very unlucky. I mean, man, a couple other results. They're playing for the division in this week. Nebraska can run the ball a bit. That's how you beat Iowa. And Chubba Purdy in his first start last week gave Nebraska offense some juice, threw for 170, ran for 100 plus. Nebraska's, what's their defense? One of the best run defenses in the country. How's Iowa going to move the ball? Deacon Hill throwing it? No. Nebraska.
I think my advice to everybody is, yes, Nebraska is one of the biggest spots in the entire card, but the way that these Iowa games are playing out,
play the money line.
I don't want to spot any points. Play the money line.
Play the money line. Yeah, play the money line with Nebraska. Yeah, the total's 26.5, by the way, lowest in college football history. It might still go down. It might go down. It might go down to 25.5. Unbelievable. Illinois versus Northwestern. Northwestern, hell of a year, but they got the bowl eligibility. And look, I mean, we got to give David Brown credit, but I mean, last week they beat Purdue's, backup quarterback. The quarterback was scratched, and they even got dominated in that game statistically. They beat Howard by 3, were outgained. I mean, they had like a 30-point comeback to win in overtime against Minnesota. They have like one good win on the year against Wisconsin. This Northwestern team, it's still like they're bottom 5 yards per play. It's still not a great team. They're satisfied. Their coach is signed. They're going to a bowl. Illinois, on the other hand, they've been unlucky. Another unlucky loss last week. They had one against Wisconsin. They could be playing for the division. They're playing to get the bowl eligibility. I think they steamroll.
This number's high. You don't think this number's too high? It's high. It should be.
I like anything under a touchdown.
All right. I'll let you roll. I'll let you roll with it. I'm gonna pass. It is this
passing on Burt.
3.5 for sure. This is high.
Let's go to some Al gifts. Temple plus 11.5 at home against Memphis. This is the third best spot on board. Memphis loses a close game last week to SMU, ruins their chance of going to the American Championship. They're already in a bowl. Now in a short week in Philly, in front of 7 people, they got to play Temple in a meaningless game. I mean, I don't know how Memphis shows up here. Temple, I think, still a little undervalued because they had to play without E.J. Warner. He might be one of the most important players in the country against the spread. because they don't have a backup. Their backups are basically running backs. And then if you look at this Memphis team, I mean, they beat North Texas 45-42, South Florida 59-50, Charlotte 44-38. I mean, they don't play any defense. They can't get any stops against anybody. Too many points. Horrible spot. Give me the Owls.
Look at you bad mouthing my covering Memphis for the show the other day. I told you it was.
Hey, I called it. I said backdoor. Didn't I call that? I said it. I said that's a backdoor game. I would play it under a touchdown, but I think that's the right side.
My problem is the defense for Temple. I mean, 131st in defensive quality drives, 120th in coverage. You can't allow that much passing explosive.
It doesn't. I don't want to get stopped. Look at every Memphis game. Every Memphis game, no matter who they play, is 50-45.
I'll pass. This one's on you. Everybody, when you call into the voicemails, I was not a part of Temple.
Al gifts. One final one. San Diego State +6 against Fresno. Couple things here. Fresno loses outright as a 3-touchdown favorite to New Mexico. Ends their season. They're going to a bowl, but they're out of Mountain West contention. They were in first place a couple weeks ago. Yep. We talked about they were a fraud anyway. By the way, their star left tackle, he's out for the year. His backup got hurt. Last game they had to go to the third string against New Mexico. It was a disaster. I think Mikey Keene will play. Not sure he's fully healthy. What can San Diego State not do? They cannot defend the run. Anytime they've played a team, and they played some elite rushing teams, UCLA, Oregon State, Air Force, they get destroyed, right? All the other games, they're right in it. And they're feisty. Brady Hoke, great as a dog, off a loss. And Fresno State can't run the ball. They don't run the ball, and they don't run it well. So they're not going to be able to attack San Diego State's main weakness here. Brady Hoke's final game, retirement game, everything I've read. Yeah. They're going to be up for this. San Diego State is live.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes right into my San Diego State section of the podcast. And we're playing San Diego State in a Brady Hoke retirement game. Fresno's on this 2-game losing streak to San Jose by 24. And lost to New Mexico outright. I mean, it's just unfathomable with this team. San Diego State covers Colorado State. They lost to San Jose by 9. So you think about that, like Fresno just recently lost to San Jose by 24, and San Diego State only lost by 9 to San Jose. So I just, I think there's two teams going in different directions. At least San Diego State has a pulse and is trying to cover in these losses, and they have been. Fresno had just 9 completions apiece from Mikey Keene and Logan Fife. Keene's practicing this week. He says it's, he's healthy and good to go. We'll see. But Fresno was horrific running the ball against New Mexico in 17 carries. They averaged 3 yards a carry. The total's right, but we're playing San Diego State all the way, like you said.
All right, 2 other games people asked about. The Battle of the Old Oaken Bucket between Purdue and Indiana. To me, a couple people asked about this. Purdue now is, I think they're like a 3.5-point favorite. They're both 3-8, just playing for pride and rivalry in the bucket. And this comes down to Hudson Card plays. They said that they're hopeful, optimistic. I think he might not play, in which case I would lean Indiana. Any thoughts there?
What's the point in him playing, right? I mean, wouldn't you rather keep him at full health for what you want to do in the future? I mean, we're really looking at Tom Allen's last game as the Indiana coach versus Ryan Walters' last game in his first season. So, but I agree with you. Hudson Card isn't there. It's a play on Indiana for me. These players at least love Tom Allen. They should show up.
One final rivalry game in rivalry week. Clemson, South Carolina. Some kind of 7.5-point underdog. They need to win to get to bowl eligibility. I lead South Carolina here.
Yeah, I think they're going to win outright. And you know what's sad is that I can't explain it. There's nothing in the advanced stats that says that they're going to be able to get one over on the Clemson defense. But this is what South Carolina did last year. By the way, I think Beamer, and I don't have the number, I know he came into the season around 8-2 against the spread in non-conference games. Like non-conference games are just, you get the best out of Beamer and his coaching. I don't know what it is, but the way they're playing, beating Kentucky, the fact that they pulled off a couple of upsets in November last year, something about this time of year and playing in non-conference, South Carolina is a completely different animal.
All right, good stuff. Before we get out of here, let's go 3 and out. All right, first down. There's no Friday night lights because we already talked about a ton of Friday games, but there's Thursday night lights. We have, as we do every year, the annual tradition of the Egg Bowl. Ole Miss taking on Mississippi State. Ole Miss sitting around a 10-point favorite here, over under 55.5. Did you write this game up?
The first one?
Ole Miss, Miss State?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I don't have a strong fear. I mean, Mississippi State, I don't know. Mississippi State's really going to get stops. Their defense is so bad, especially on the back end. You know, their offense now got Will Rogers back. It has a little bit more life through the air. I might lean over here, but I don't have a strong feel. Help me
I
out.
took the under. Yeah, I took the under. It was my first take on 56.5, but I think we're probably going to get to 55 or lower by the time we get to kick. There was a massive amount of money that came in on Mississippi State that moved the point spread from 13.5 up to 18 against Southern Miss. They ended up covering that game because of a pick six.
Luke's.
Yeah, there was, it wasn't a real box score. I mean, this Mississippi State offense didn't do anything to deserve that victory. Will Rogers came back. There were 6 drops. He was 12-27 passing. Obviously, there is a lot of rust there. Ole Miss, they run a pretty light box, nickel, 2 or 3 down linemen, but they're below national average success rate. And a lot of the things Mississippi State wants to do from a passing perspective with Will Rogers. But can the Mississippi State defense carry over the finishing drive success? Because they've been dead last, like the entire nation, when teams get into scoring position. Mississippi State's defense is top 50 unit in defending inside zone and power, which is what the primary run concept of Quinshon Judkins is. And the defense is always a max protect, but Dart's EPA advantages here, especially against quarters, coverage, high success rate, high EPA. I'm looking at under because of the pace Mississippi State wants to implement. Like, I don't expect a lot of success rate for the Mississippi State ground game. I think there's going to be a lot of limitations and explosives from them. Will Rogers is not in sync with his wide receivers. So for those reasons, I like the under. But from a side perspective, here we are again. The money is just hammering Mississippi State. It moved 5 points last week against Southern Miss, and it got there because of some fluke pick sixes and special teams play. So I'm not a part. I don't understand this team on Mississippi State. The offense is just not there, and it doesn't deserve to go this way. But I'll play the under. Maybe I'll come back on Ole Miss before kick.
All right. It should be fun, and there should be shenanigans, as always. It's a perfect game for Thanksgiving night. All right. Let's move on to second down, and it's our favorite. I will start. I'm going to go with Illinois, like 5.5 against Northwestern. By the way, Northwestern, I talked about some of the breaks they've gotten, some of their wins. This team's still negative 0.5 net yards per play. They've also been very lucky. I mean, you look, they have a +8 turnover margin. They fumbled 11 times. They've lost 1. Their 2 quarterbacks have 16 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, despite 14 big-time throws, 16 turnover-worthy plays. They've also overperformed on late downs. There's regression coming. They've been lucky. They're fat and happy now. Fat and happy cats. In a bowl, got their coach, Illinois fighting for bowl eligibility. I think Illinois rolls. And no, we did not forget about Colin in Arkansas, because his favorite is
the Missouri Tigers coming down to Fayetteville to get it done. I'll be happy to be in attendance to see the end of this Razorback season. I could go through a billion statistics about why Missouri is going to beat this team. Missouri is on their way to a New Year's bowl game. Missouri is dominating people on offense. Cody Schrader got a little bit late start on his Heisman campaign. Brady Cook has been fantastic. Missouri has been fantastic at every aspect. Now let's talk about some things that aren't on the field. This is a really big game to Elijah Drinkwitz. Drink is from the state of Arkansas, but he never got a sniff for the head coaching job, for firing Chad Morris. All the times that we've had a vacancy, he wasn't on our list. And there's a couple of jabs he's taken at Arkansas over the years. One of them being 2 years ago, when asked about this borderline trophy, this made up, rivalry that they put Arkansas in with Missouri. Drink said, this is only a rivalry when both teams win. Now that's funny and true because Arkansas had never won since they implemented the trophy. Now Arkansas did win it 2 years ago, but then they lost it again last year. This rivalry means a lot to Drinkwitz, and it means a lot from a couple of perspectives, but it's personal. And the reason why it's personal is because his close friend is Gus Malzahn. And the way Gus Malzahn was treated in 2006 with the Springdale Five, Houston Nutt, being run out of town as a high school coach, getting hired and then run out of town over to Tulsa to be their offensive coordinator, that didn't sit well with Drink at all. And Drink has, from what I learned from SEC media days, he didn't take a phone call from Arkansas, and he won't take a phone call from Arkansas because of the way the administration has treated Gus Malzahn over the years. A guy that was a high school coach in Northwest Arkansas, was genuinely loved and admired in the state of Arkansas, and just has gotten a raw deal. Drink, it's personal. He's from here. He is not happy with the administration, and Missouri is not coming down to screw around against Arkansas. By the way, we're dead in the water. Every single player on this Arkansas roster is about to get into the transfer portal. They do not care about this game. They didn't care about Florida International because Pittman came out and said, we're playing for pride. We're playing for pride. We got new clothes, new logos, new everything. Couldn't even cover against Florida International. Couldn't even sniff it till late in the game when they got an extra score. There is nothing about this team that cares about winning this trophy, beating Missouri, defending home. We need the end of the season to get here fast. But it's different when it comes to Drink. He wants to rub it in our face, and he's going to do it. Missouri's going to cover here easy.
All right, before we get out of here, one final test. That's our favorite money line underdogs. Got a sweep last week. The formula: take the Service Academy dog and fade the team that's a favorite against the Service Academy. UNLV and Army both got home for us, so let's keep it going. I switched mine up last second because you gave me you got me more excited about it. So
oh boy.
I'm going with the Brady Hoke retirement party.
Boom.
San Diego State
against Fresno Maiden State. In the house.
Fresno State, this is a good matchup for San Diego State. Fresno State can't take advantage of San Diego State's horrendous run defense. And I think Fresno State is just a dead man walking here after last week. Left tackle injuries also major. San Diego State will show up here for Hoke. Who's always been good as a dog. Always been good after a loss. So, yeah, give me Maiden and the San Diego State team. That's been really competitive if you just remove the elite rushing attacks, national elite. And Fresno State's certainly not one of those. So, yeah, let's go with the Aztecs. Where are you headed?
Brady Hoke, soon to be 1-0 in retirement games. I'm going to go to something dirty, real dirty. No one's going to watch this game. No one's going to care about this game. I'm going to take Sam Houston winning outright against.
Eat them up, Cats.
Listen, we talked about this all year. These teams that can't make a bowl or new to FBS, that whatnot, this is their Super Bowl. This is the biggest game of the year. It's the last one. They absolutely know there's finality to this. Now, Middle Tennessee is going to go on the road here. They also can't make a bowl, but this is the Super Bowl for a Sam Houston State team that won 2 straight and then got to the damn goal line. I had them in a round robin. Got to the goal line with no time left against Western Kentucky and could not hit their man in the end zone to pull off a 3rd straight win. The Sam Houston team is hot right now. The big difference here is tackling. Sam Houston's 15th in the nation. Middle Tennessee is 109th. There are plenty of advantages for the Bearcats in their passing game from a success rate standpoint, and they are getting better and better week by week. Their red zone efficiency has massively improved over the 2 wins, 4.3 points per opportunity with finishing drives. That is well above their season rank. They are getting better week by week. We're going to take them here at home. Last game of the season as a new member of FBS going up against what should be a lifeless Middle Tennessee State team.
Amazing. I like it. San Diego State and Sam Houston State for the final regular season.
What podcast is bringing that to you?
You gotta love it. And yeah, we will have one more round. We will have one more moneyline underdog piece for the entirety of bowl season. We'll each pick our favorite underdog. Stay tuned for our schedule there. All right, that'll do it for us. Next week, smaller slate, but we'll be doing deep dives on every single conference championship game Got 2 on Friday, 8 on Saturday. We'll dive into each and every one. Group of 5, they'll have their episode out at the normal time, Wednesdays, going over the group of 5. Hopefully we get an SMU in Miami, Ohio to the window. But thanks for listening. Happy Thanksgiving once again. Thanks for joining me, Colin. Thanks to our producers on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for supporting the show. Hope you have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Don't forget, subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy, leave a review, 5-star reviews. They really help us out. Do some giveaways on the recap show, 959 Bad Beat. Don't forget about the voicemail. We will be back with the normal recap show on Monday morning. Good luck on all of your wagers this weekend. Let's close the year strong. And we'll see you on the weekend. Cheers.
Peace out.